an original.
From Story Studio Network.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
So here we are. It is Friday, September the 9th. And normally we had promised you On the Ledge today, but that was before, well, history took charge in the last 24 hours. So we thought it was only appropriate that we start with something a little bit more solemn. I mean, normally we would do On the Ledge and we'd have the sound of Queen Victoria in her carriage doing a tour around Queen's Park and telling James not to spare the horses. But I think today it's probably kind of an important conversation to be having with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, the first speech from King Charles III, because I think it's going to set the tone for a lot of what goes on in places like Queen's Park. It's at the foundation of what we all do on a daily basis. Dave Trafford here. It's a special edition of, well, we might as well call it Now and Next. We hadn't planned on launching the show until Monday, but here we are on this Friday. And my partner in crime, Aaron Trafford, joining us from Halifax today. And, you know, you hear that clip from Elizabeth when she was such a young, she was basically a girl. She was barely a young woman. Making that, it wasn't a promise. It was this commitment, and she could not have known, but she had the foresight to say, no matter how long my life, short or long, this is what I'm devoted to. I'm committed to doing this. And it's remarkable, you know, when I hear that that clip, that she has lived this out now, right? She has lived beyond that expectation to a point where I don't think anybody was shocked that the 96-year-old queen died. The shock to the system is that, oh, she's always been there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not that she's not here anymore. It's, we kind of just, she was a force of nature that just kind of quietly went along. I heard her described as the last of the silent movie stars.
But was she really silent? And I've been thinking about this a lot because I'll be honest, like the first reaction I had was, you know, oh God love her. She lived till she was 96. If it was anyone who lives till 96, you have to, you know, offer their respect and condolence. And that's just a remarkable feat in and of itself. And then, you know, my next thought was, how, you know, I don't know how long it was between when Prince Philip died and when she died, but not very long.
No, it's
and so then
a year or so, give or take.
Right.
Yeah.
Not very long. So then you think about, you know, that this woman had that marriage that was so tumultuous and she was in, and that's where my brain went. I went to like, you know, what about her husband and her family? And you start to think about this. And then you think of this legacy of this queen who was, to your point, put on the throne when she was barely an adult, like she was in her 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started to really think about why are we feeling such a collective loss right now? Because obviously not unexpected given her age. And I think, to your point, it's that she's always been there. Yes. But I feel very deeply that she represents the loss of true leadership.
Yeah, good point.
Because she's a woman. And if she was, you know, silent or not, she got her way. Right? Like even just like, but she did it through diplomacy and expectation. She set an expectation for British citizens, but also global citizens.
Well, but even when you think of that, I mean, she was a 25-year-old young woman in a world that was being run by men. So that was one thing. Just after the Second World War. But what was most interesting to me as you watch and you know kind of pay attention to the history there, clearly she was self-deprecating or self-aware enough. I don't know. There was always the questions: how smart was Elizabeth? Was she really an intelligent person? Don't know. I don't think it matters. I think she had a level of self-awareness, self-deprecation, and self-confidence at any one time, where you saw the monarchy go from a sort of this ruling class in a country, and pretty much the country anyway, that was all white for the most part. Now you look at the diversity in the UK now, and the degree to which the monarchy has evolved, culturally evolved. And sure, there have been some bumps, the whole question around Diana and whether or not they behaved appropriately and all that kind of stuff. But it just becomes, for me, everybody talks about whether or not you're going to have the monarchy now that you don't have the queen. She is the monarchy. Up until today, she is the monarchy. And it will be redefined by Charles as we move it forward. But I think it's kind of cool, like you say, when you look at the dignity, the grace, the level of leadership, and particularly lately, maybe in the last 10 years, where she has taken this sort of wisdom that she has gained in her senior years, and some of the most motivating and inspiring things that she had to say in really tough times, particularly during COVID, So we have a lot to learn from her.
Well, and then that's why I said my first thought was, God love her. She lived an incredible life. And then I thought about her husband, because she was doing all of this while raising a family, while being, to your point, a woman in an actual man's world, while, and her marriage was up and down, right? If you watch that Netflix series, you kind of see how they've dramatized all of that, and she held it together. And I think now in this day and age, if you had an equivalent female figure, she would have been tarred and feathered in the public eye. But something about the way she just chose to lead and stay accountable to her role meant that she just commanded respect, and she was so dignified. And so I do think that, the fact that, this is why I think people are so emotional about her passing. Now, notwithstanding, if you're on the Twitterverse, you're seeing a very different conversation, especially in Canada, about how much attention we should be paying to this right now. And I think that's the conversation, frankly, being aware of the fact that I am a white woman of privilege. I think that is a conversation we need to have now that we're going into what is this king going to mean to Canada. We have to have that conversation now.
And I think that's a necessary conversation to have, but it can't be, I hate him because he's a womanizer. All right, we can't have a king because he's a womanizer. We don't get to choose. I mean, so what I'm saying is you can't separate the monarch from the monarchy, right? So if we determine that the monarchy is valuable, and I know there are lots of arguments to say that there are problems with it and it doesn't mean as much. Having said all that, I go back to my original point. The monarchy has evolved considerably over the last 70 years under the Elizabethan reign. By the way, I learned that we are now in the Caroline reign. I had to look it up because there's the Edwardian and Georgian and Elizabethan, and it's the Caroline reign under Charles, the third era. So, but on all this kind of, useless information we're sort of pulling together. But at the heart of it, I think that we're going to have to look and see what kind of King Charles is. The king delivered his very first speech today from Buckingham Palace. I just have a listen. I know that you haven't heard it yet, but I'd be interested to get your cold reaction just to the boxes he ticked. What did he miss? Did he stumble? Where did this go? All right. So here is King Charles III from Buckingham Palace.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother, for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise with destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today. Alongside the personal grief that all my family are feeling, we also share with so many of you in the United Kingdom, in all the countries where the Queen was head of state, in the Commonwealth and across the world, a deep sense of gratitude for the more than 70 years in which my mother, as Queen, served the people of so many nations. In 1947, on her 21st birthday, she pledged in a broadcast from Cape Town to the Commonwealth to devote her life, whether it be short or long, to the service of her peoples. That was more than a promise. It was a profound personal commitment which defined her whole life. She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion as sovereign never wavered, through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. In her life of service, we saw that abiding love of tradition, together with that fearless embrace of progress, which makes us great as nations. The affection, admiration, and respect she inspired became the hallmark of her reign. And as every member of my family can testify, she combined these qualities with warmth, humor, and an unerring ability always to see the best in people. I pay tribute to my mother's memory, and I honor her life of service. I know that her death brings great sadness to so many of you, and I share that sense of loss beyond measure with you all. When the Queen came to the throne, Britain and the world were still coping with the privations and aftermath of the Second World War, and still living by the conventions of earlier times. In the course of the last 70 years, we have seen our society become one of many cultures and many faiths. The institutions of the state have changed in turn. But through all changes and challenges, our nation and the wider family of realms, of whose talents, traditions, and achievements I am so inexpressibly proud, have prospered and flourished. Our values have remained, and must remain, constant. The role and the duties of monarchy also remain, as does the sovereign's particular relationship and responsibility towards the Church of England, the church in which my own faith is so deeply rooted. In that faith and the values it inspires, I have been brought up to cherish a sense of duty to others and to hold in the greatest respect the precious traditions, freedoms, and responsibilities of our unique history and our system of parliamentary government. As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation. And wherever you may live in the United Kingdom, or in the realms and territories across the world, and whatever may be your background or beliefs, I shall endeavor to serve you with loyalty, respect, and love, as I have throughout my life. My life will, of course, change as I take up my new responsibilities. It will no longer be possible for me to give so much of my time and energies to the charities and issues for which I care so deeply. But I know this important work will go on in the trusted hands of others. This is also a time of change for my family. I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla. In recognition of her own loyal public service since our marriage 17 years ago, she becomes my Queen Consort. I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much. As my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me. He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades. Today, I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty. With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the centre ground, where vital help can be given. I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives overseas. In a little over a week's time, we will come together as a nation, as a Commonwealth, and indeed a global community, to lay my beloved mother to rest. In our sorrow, let us remember and draw strength from the light of her example. On behalf of all my family, I can only offer the most sincere and heartfelt thanks for your condolences and support. They mean more to me than I can ever possibly express. And to my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late Papa, I want simply to say this: thank you. Thank you for your love and devotion to our family and to the family of nations you have served so diligently all these years. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
So that is the first utterance from King Charles. What do you think?
Oh, it's sad. It made me sad. But I think what I heard was, to be honest, a man who is humbled by what he now is faced with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So let me paint the picture further. You know, you talked about all the nonsense that's going on social media.
Yeah.
Here, this isn't a job he asked for.
Mm-hmm.
He feels duty bound to take this job out of respect for the traditions of his family. But what I heard is out of respect for his mom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and I heard a lot of commentary yesterday suggesting Elizabeth has raised the bar so high it's not possible that Charles will ever attain that. And I thought, he's had a pretty good teacher for 70 years. So
yes.
the idea that she just didn't. Now, we know that early on, and there's history and it's well documented in terms of the kind of rough childhood he had. His mom's the Queen of England.
Yeah.
It becomes a difficult thing to be close to your mom, but again, the difference between the person and the actual office. She, I think, showed such great example in how to be the monarch. I think that we underestimate how important that experience was. He's the oldest person to take the throne in the UK, and I don't think he's a stupid person.
No.
I heard him tick a lot of boxes. It's about his family, clearly. Mm-hmm. It's about the country, but he actually talked about the diversity and how the cultures have changed, and recognized that there are other countries around the world. Didn't mention Canada, but clearly we're up there in terms of the places that, he now feels some obligation and duty to. The difference here is he uses the word service.
And that was one of the first
in service, right?
The first words he used, and I picked up on that. I think it was in the second or third sentence when he talked about the way he categorized what his mother's legacy was. It was service, and sacrifice was the other word that stuck out for me, which, part of what I heard, and this is just reading the emotion of what he was getting at, is that maybe the humble sense you get from him is that he's thinking she really did sacrifice her whole life. There's no way he's ever going to reign as long as she did. He's never going to have to sacrifice what she did. All he has to do now is do it even half as well as she did, right? Like there's got to be this for him personally. Like he's known that this is coming. There was no way to escape it for him. And I just, it makes me feel sorry for him, but, in an odd way, kind of confident that maybe he will do something unexpected and amazing with this new role that he has. I mean, even the fact that he made a point of calling out Harry and Meghan, which back in the day when somebody defected from the monarchy, they would have just been blacklisted. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He knows that we expected him to say, I have two sons and they both mean a lot to me and they both mean a lot to you. And
that he has a wife of 17 years.
Right.
Right. I mean, and we've just got past the anniversary of Diana's death 25 years ago.
That's right.
So, and again, there's so much turmoil around that. And people are making these judgments on that based on his relationship 25 years ago with Diana. And I don't think you can dismiss that. I mean, you got to kind of live with your past. There's no question about that. But here's what I think is interesting. All the way through this, they were talking about the character of this new king, and that he has been sometimes controversial because of the subjects that he has decided to take on and the causes. Think about this. I was your age or younger, considerably younger, when he started talking about the importance of the environment.
Yes.
Right? How we were custodians of this world and the environment and nature and really taking hold of it. And it wasn't unusual for him to make what would be considered a politically slanted comment, right? And maybe even pick up the phone and talk to a minister in the government. Can't do that now. As the king. And he acknowledged that. Now, he didn't say that specifically, but the causes that he was spending so much time with, he couldn't commit to. But here's what I heard him say. It's not so much that he's going to redefine the monarchy as in who sits on the regent throne. He's redefined the role of the Prince of Wales. Yes. Because he called on William and Kate to say, this is your job now. And very specifically, it's about making sure that those who are on the margins are brought to the center to be taken care of. If that's his command as the new king, and that's the marching order for his number two, that changes the dynamic entirely. When I heard that, I had a catch in my throat, and that was the first. I was waiting for it to happen, and it was when he officially declared William, the Prince of Wales. He created him, the Prince of Wales, and Catherine as the Princess of Wales, because
That was the nod to Diana. There's going to be people out there saying, like, why didn't he acknowledge Diana? It's because she is reborn through William and Kate. And you think about all of those things that Diana did that a princess should never have done. Going into war zones with landmines and picking up and hugging, children on the streets. Like, she was, the people's princess, right? But she was the Princess of Wales.
Mm-hmm.
Her job was to take care of people. So right. I don't know. I have zero criticisms of King Charles at this point. Zero.
Yeah, I think that the subtext in that is really important. I mean, I heard a lot of commentary. Well, I'm glad he acknowledged, like you said,
Harry and Meghan.
And Meghan. They're part of the family. And that to me was a pretty, short piece, but a very powerful piece. So anyway, I would like to think, and I'm not necessarily a monarchist, and we can get into all the arguments about how easy it would be to just
abolish it and go away and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, you realize you have to have a constitutional.
Oh, yeah. It would be expensive.
Amendment. Well, it would go on for years. You have to have all these agreements and all the parliaments, and oh my God.
Yeah.
And again, I come back to the question of what is it that actually stunts our growth as a nation that we have a king who resides in London? What is it? What is it that actually stunts our growth and our opportunity as a country?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
No,
yeah.
I'm not sure there is one, but we have to kind of come at it from that perspective, right? So anyway, thanks for jumping in. I think it was a good bit of history, and we'll be back at it Monday morning. Very excited. Mm-hmm. We're going to start. We're recording our first Now and Next officially, the hard launch, as they say. And, we're going to talk about a number of things that are coming, no doubt will happen between now and Monday. But among other things, we're going to get read the tea leaves on what came out of the Conservative leadership race. I think it's fairly predictable, but we've got some really good inside voices on this to say, okay, now here's where we are. What's next? And that's the point of the show, right?
We'll see you Monday.
This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.